let's just get right to it. Can you just maybe start us off with some opening comments, and we'll go to questions.
Well, obviously not a lot of comments, just practice and very similar routine to what we had last week, where the players get some work in and take a little break over the weekend and get ready to play a game next Saturday, and just continue on. So we're just banging away every day.
All right. Well, questions. If you have a question for Coach Gundy, please click raise hand. Our first question is going to come from Robert Allen from Triple Play Sports. Go ahead, Robert.
Yeah, Coach, I wanted to ask you, how close is this to what happened at the beginning of the year as far as the way your guys have responded when you had the Tulsa game pushed back? Because it's kind of a similar situation. You're ready within a week of playing a game and kind of gets pulled out from under the rug.
It's interesting. Nothing surprises them anymore. Nothing surprises the staff. The bounce back from the players in the Tulsa week was considerably more than it was this week.
You said in the conference call with the Big 12 on Monday that you'd stick to the routine. I'm sure you have. Have you felt good about the way they've gone through the routine this week? Have you been productive?
They practice well. Their attitudes are good. Our enthusiasm's good. Effort's good. We're getting a lot of work accomplished. So I feel about as good as a guy could feel going through another open week.
Thanks, Coach.
Mm-hmm.
Our next question is going to come from Joseph Fazio from the Ocali. Go ahead, Joseph.
Coach, your team last played on October 3rd, and by the time you guys face Iowa State, it will be 3 weeks after that. Do you think that maybe with the bye week and now the other bye week, that it can take away from your team's game readiness?
I hope not. I'm not sure. It'd be hard for me to answer. I've not been down this road before. The only thing I can go on is watching our guys in practice, and they seem to be doing very well at this time.
All right. Thanks, Coach.
Mm-hmm.
Our next question is going to come from Scott Wright from the Oklahoman. Go ahead, Scott.
Mike, you mentioned on your show with Dave Hunziker the other day that you guys tried to find another opponent this week. Could you talk a little bit more about that?
Coach Holder and I had discussed trying to find an opponent for this week, and we were unsuccessful. I'm not sure exactly how many people or coaches, I should say, or organizations that we were able actually to pursue, but we had those discussions based on we're trying to play as many games as possible while we're healthy and take advantage of Saturdays.
So was that sort of out of a little bit of fear that another game could be postponed, or you just wanted to keep the guys fresh and playing right now? I
think both. I think you hope that you don't have an outbreak, and it could happen at any time. And if it happens, then there's a chance that you might miss 2 games, if not significant players for at least one. And so when you have a group that's ready and healthy based on our testing, that we just hate to let a weekend get by without playing a game.
Thanks, Coach.
Our next question comes from Chris Becker from the Ocali. Go ahead, Chris.
Coach, how you doing today?
Good, thank you.
So these next 2 games are pretty important, 2 tough opponents with Iowa State and Texas. How do you think these next 2 games are going to show how this team can be down the stretch with the first 2 tests, so to say?
Well, we're getting ready to get into a pretty good run here of games, as you guys know, and we're not in a position to look by anybody or much less look by today's practice. And I've said this for the last 10 days in that we're going to find a lot about our football team over the next month. We're going to play some teams that can really put pressure on the perimeter. They're athletic. Quarterback plays good. And we'll know a lot more about where we're at, find more information on our conditioning, things like that. So we just have to, worry about practicing today, and then come back and try to have the best week we can to get ready to play Iowa State.
And then on a more specific front, yesterday Devin Harper talked about stopping the tight ends of Iowa State. How important is that to your game plan and success in stopping a guy like Charlie Kolar?
Sure. They play really well with tight ends. They have for a number of years now, and they make a lot of plays with them. And so we have to stop those guys. They've recruited guys that have height and reach, and they've had success with that, and it's a big part of their offense.
Awesome. Thank you, Coach.
Our next question comes from Sam Kahn from ESPN.com. Go ahead, Sam.
Hey, Mike, I'm curious, given the restrictions, what do you think of the home game atmosphere for your first 2 home games?
I thought our fans were fantastic. I mentioned this after the Tulsa and West Virginia game that I thought we actually even influenced snap count for the visiting team. I think there's, I don't know how many, 15, 16,000 people in the stands. I'm not sure, but they were loud, and I actually thought they affected the game.
Our next question is going to come from Cody Nagel from Go Pokes. Go ahead, Cody.
Hey, Mike, I'm just curious how Spencer has looked lately and if he's still splitting reps with Shane.
Yeah, he's doing just fine, and they're getting the equal reps and seem to be doing very well.
Would you say that Spencer's maybe back to 100% now or still not quite?
He's got to be getting close. You never really know till you get in a game, but I thought he was pretty close before we played Kansas. So he's moving that way. I can't imagine that he's won't be 100%.
All right, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Our next question comes from Jenny Carlson from the Oklahoman. Go ahead, Jenny.
Hey, Mike, if you addressed this on the radio show, I apologize, I missed it. But in looking for, to follow up on what Scott asked, in looking for potential game this week, was a Big 12 opponent a possibility? There's only one game in the league happening this week. Was that even a thought?
Yeah, our first choice would have been a Big 12 opponent to try to fit one in where there was availability. To potentially open up a later date in case somebody had an outbreak.
Was that something the conference was at all? I mean, I don't even know how that works. If you called individual schools or you call the conference, was there anybody biting on that hook?
I was not in those conversations. I was asked what I thought about it, and I was 100% in agreement with it. But I didn't get in those conversations. I would venture to guess that the conference would. Well, with this year, I think everything's free game. And I think the conference would have been all for it. It could have allowed a little bit of flexibility for us and another team in this league later with an outbreak. And I think the conference wants us to be able to play as many games as possible, just like we do.
All right. Thanks, Mike.
Mm-hmm.
Our next question comes from Robert Allen from Triple Play Sports. Go ahead, Robert.
Yeah, Mike, I wanted to follow this up. I know you enjoy talking X's and O's, and the advent of offense has been so crazy with the spread and so forth. But how much does it stress a defense to play an offense like Iowa State that their base personnel is 13? I mean, that's goal line, short yardage stuff, and yet you're going to see that a lot of times, first, second, and third downs out of them in long and medium.
It's different than what you would see from most of us that play offensive football today. That's the concept that Matt's gone with, and it's a little different approach, but they do some really good things out of it, and it's a challenge for a defense to be able to contain those type of plays where you get a lot of inside zone blocking with block backs with tight ends, and you get some pole plays and things that you don't see with two tight ends much today, much less three tight ends. So it's a challenge, but hopefully our guys will come up with a nice plan and get some quality reps on it and help us play well defensively in the game.
Yeah, and going back to last year, you guys, I know it puts stress on linebackers and especially safeties to cover the bigger guys, but your guys should have some confidence because that was one of the better defensive games a year ago, and especially that fourth quarter, your defense kind of took over?
I think our defense has a lot of confidence. I really do. I watch them practice. They enjoy each other. They're playing reckless at this point, which I think is a valuable asset for a defense. I'm looking forward to the next game, and as we progress over the next month, watching and seeing how we develop and finding out how good we are on defense. So, that's the strategic part that I really enjoy in coaching is when we get out there a week from Saturday, we kind of find out how good of schemes we have and how good of coaches we are based on the players. The results on the field by the players tell us as coaches if we've done a good job each week. There's your clear-cut evidence. So it'll be interesting to see how it all falls.
Thanks.
Our next question comes from Danielle Dwyer from Fox 25. Go ahead, Danielle.
Yeah, Mike, I wanted to ask you about, you talked about how ready the team is, how good they're looking in practice so far, but from your perspective, for you, what's been the biggest challenge so far this season now that you've had these two games kind of get pushed back at the last minute? From your perspective, what's been the biggest challenge?
Personally, for me, it's been the organization and structure. Our calendar here for 15 years has been done 1 year in advance. And I'm having to change meetings, practices, times, lifts, meals, all the different things that we have in place to give our players the best chance for success has been altered every 3 to 4 days. And for me, that takes a lot of time because you can't just throw things together. There has to be a lot of thought involved in what we do here. Questions have to be asked to Rob Glass in strength conditioning, our nutritionist, our coordinators, the players. I met with the players on Tuesday and our committee anyway, and asked them what they thought about practices and where we're at as a team. So the challenge for me has been just altering our schedule when I've not had to do that basically in 15 years.
And you talk about how you're going to know more about this team here in the next month. How do you think having this additional week, do you think it's going to be a good thing, bad thing as you guys get ready going into that, since you aren't just in that process of, preparing for games each week? You've had these two bye weeks, so to say.
So the change in plans and the way we went about getting to our layout for this week and next week, which I just discussed, if we win the game, it'll be a good decision. If we don't win the game, it'll be a bad decision. And that's why I don't like altering what I've normally, what my plans have been for 15 years, where we're so far in advance. And we just have to feel our way through it. Again, I go back to listening to the players and then watching practice to see what kind of enthusiasm and effort we have, because that's where you're at, right? The guys like to play games. And when you put a lot of time and effort in and then don't get to play a game, then as a young person, 18, 19, 20, 21-year-old, you have to really focus and find the direction to say, I'm going to work hard another 2 weeks to get ready to play this game. I'm not going to take a week off. You just don't have that flexibility when you're playing quality opponents to take 3 or 4 days off and then come back next week. In football, in the sport of football, in my opinion, there's just too many things that have to happen every day in order to keep our bodies in shape to perform at the highest level.
And then just one quick follow-up. How have you seen LD Brown grow the most? I mean, he's looking a lot stronger this year. For you, what have you seen from him that maybe has led to the more production this year than maybe we saw last year with him?
He's enjoying his career, his senior year. He smiles every day. He's comfortable with himself. He's turned it loose. He's become a physical pass blocker. He's a good receiver if we want to use him. And he's running hard, and he's had a taste of success early in the season, which makes him want more. And he's been a very pleasant surprise for us because of his attitude and his effort and the enthusiasm that he brings to our team every day.
Our next question is going to come from Jenny Carlson from the Oklahoman. Go ahead, Jenny.
Hey, Mike, I think we asked a couple different times before the season started about Spencer and sort of his evolution, not only as a player, but as a leader. Obviously, this injury, I mean, I have to think it threw kind of a wrench in how he, how much he was on the practice field and that sort of thing. What's how has he handled that? Obviously, quarterback, sort of that alpha position, but you've got such great other veterans on the offense. Like, how has that factored in, and how has he been in that role as all of this has gone on with his injury?
It's affected his development because he's not out there. And, it's always interesting to me how some coaches will say that players have really developed their leadership skills. And if they're not playing, I don't know how you do that. If you're not practicing full speed, I don't know how you do that. Because in this organization, you have to practice full speed and you have to be competitive on game day in order for anybody to say you're going to be a leader. It's not anything he's done wrong. He just hasn't been out there in a month. And for that reason, he's got to reestablish himself as a practice player, which he has. He's practiced well this week, and then reestablish himself as a leader and a competitor on game day in order for that to happen, because that's not just a free ticket. You don't get that for free. That has to be earned. So it's been set back a month just based on what's happened.
How would you sort of characterize his leadership? Because, I mean, I think as an outsider, I think about guys like Tylen and Chuba and, Dylan and those sorts of guys, just because they're older and they've, been in a lot of games. Like, how's he different? How's he similar to those guys?
Spencer's a really good practice player, and he's very competitive on game day, as you guys know. He's going to fight till the end. You have to drag him off the field. And we're working to control his emotions on game day. It's not a disrespectful, negative emotion, but he gets so caught up in the moment that he wants to win so bad that at times he needs to settle a little bit. So those are things that we were working through with him all the way up till, he was injured in the Tulsa game. And that's an ongoing process with a young player. I said this the other day, and I don't know who all heard it, but he's still a young football player. He hasn't played very many games. I mean, he got hurt last year, and then he only played the first half of this year or whatever he played. I can't remember against Tulsa. So he's still a young player that's got a ways to go in the development stage, but he practices hard. He likes to compete. He loves to play the game, and he wants to win. So all of that should come through for him. But in my opinion, it's not as easy for that to happen when you're not playing on game day.
That high level of emotion kind of strikes me as like almost that defensive mindset. Like, those guys are ready to run through a wall, like any time. Like Spencer, that you don't always equate that with quarterbacks. Have you had other quarterbacks that you've had to work with sort of settling and mellowing them out a little bit, like you're working on him with this?
That is a pretty good illustration of him. He has a little bit of a defensive mentality, and he's like the child you have at home that gets really mad at you and says, I don't like you, Mom, or I don't like you, Dad, and cries, and then 30 minutes later comes down and tells you how much they love you. Well, that's kind of his attitude. That's what he does. And so it's all good. He's got a good heart. He means well. Guy just wants to win games. He won so many games in high school. That's just what he's accustomed to. So he's coming along. He does have a little bit of a defensive mentality. And once he gets back up and running in full speed and gets playing, then I think all that will work for him.
Thanks.
Our next question is going to come from Sam Kahn from ESPN.com. Go ahead, Sam.
Mike, I'm curious, have the players expressed to you any frustration with the change in schedule? And I guess what kind of mental toll has it taken on guys who just want to compete?
They really didn't say much this week. I think they're to the point now where nothing shocks them anymore. When it happened for the Tulsa game, earlier I discussed that I could kind of see some emotions in players like, really? I didn't feel any of that this week because I just think that nothing surprises them at this point.
Thank you.
And our final question is going to come from Robert Allen from Triple Play Sports. Go ahead, Robert.
Yeah, Mike, simple one. I heard Damon West, the motivational speaker that came in and spoke to your guys and a lot of the OSU teams last week on the radio this morning. I didn't get to hear his message, but the guy's pretty impressive. Did you get much feedback from your players, or did you get a chance to hear what he had to say?
Our team really enjoyed his talk. He was with us for about 45 minutes, and I watched throughout the room, and I thought our players were very attentive. He used PowerPoint and video, so the room was kind of dark, and they all had masks on, so all you could see is their eyes. So they were all open, and they were on him. So it looked like to me they really appreciated it. And I know that there was a group of them that stayed after his visit, and they wanted to talk to him personally. So I thought that was a good sign.
Hey, thanks.
All right, Coach, before we let you go, is there anything maybe that we missed that you wanted to talk about while we've got everyone here?
I think we're good. Y'all have a good weekend, and look forward to seeing y'all next week.
Thanks so much, Coach. We appreciate you.
Okay.
Take care, everybody.